Unfortunately, we're not always prepared. And sometimes a rabbi is taken aback. He doesn't know why a 17-year-old boy would want to learn about the laws of Shabbos. And when he's asked to teach the laws of Shabbos, his question is, quite innocently, what for? The boy's answer to me was, what do you mean, what for? I'm Jewish. Have I ever told you the story about the time we had this matzah bakery right up to my mouth? We had this matzah bakery in Minneapolis at the other JCC. And along with the matzah baking for the children, there was also a display of various mitzvahs on the side of the room. One of the mitzvahs we had displayed was candlesticks and candles for Shabbos. We had a little sign there that said that even little girls should light Shabbos candles. And as the kids from different classes of Talmud Torah and afternoon schools filed past this table, we gave each little girl a candlestick to take home. I believe they were glass at the time. And the really young girls, we didn't want them carrying glass on the bus, it might get hurt, so we didn't give them. And we explained to them that the older kids are getting, but younger kids, we can only give it to the teacher or to their parents. This was in the afternoon. Later that evening, around 7 o'clock, we had the matzah baking again for the teenagers at the center. And the door opens up, and this woman comes in. A little 6-year-old girl is dragging her by one hand. She's got an infant in the other hand. And this little girl drags her up to the table, and she's saying, you see, look, it says right there. And she points to the sign that says that even little girls should light Shabbos candles. And the mother said, I don't believe this girl. She wouldn't leave me alone all day. She finally dragged me out of the house, got me into the car. We drove 20 minutes to get here. And it's all because she must have a little candlestick for her Shabbos candle. Another time, an older student called up Lubavitch House. I happened to answer the phone. And he says, is there a rabbi there? He wants to learn about Shabbos. So I said, well, when are you free? And he says, you'll learn with me? I said, yes. He says, you'll teach me about Shabbos? I said, yes. Why are you so surprised? And he said, well, he had been disappointed. He had spoken to his rabbi. He had made an appointment. He had come at the appointed time. And when he walked into the room, the rabbi said to him, so what, it's on your mind? And he says, can you teach me the laws of Shabbos? And the rabbi said, what for? And he was so hurt by that answer that he walked out. About 40 years ago, 30 years ago, Jewish leaders, Jewish teachers, responsible people in the community were saying, let's not push our kids too hard. Let's not teach them everything. Let's not expect that they keep all the mitzvahs. If we leave them alone, if we tell them only a little bit, then they themselves will come back and ask for more. Nobody believed that. We said it to ease our own conscience, but nobody actually believed it. In fact, it is happening. Children who were not urged or encouraged to practice Yiddishkeit are coming home to their parents, are knocking on the synagogue doors and saying, teach me about Yiddishkeit. Unfortunately, we're not always prepared. And sometimes a rabbi is taken aback. He doesn't know why a 17-year-old boy would want to learn about the laws of Shabbos. And when he's asked to teach the laws of Shabbos, his question is, quite innocently, what for? The boy's answer to me was, "What do you mean, what for? I'm Jewish." A boy came home from camp last summer, a camp in which they had services a couple of times a day, where they read the Torah a couple of times a week. And he came home, and he was very angry at his parents, at his community. He said, "Why didn't you teach me to read Hebrew? Why didn't you tell me that there is a talent and an art to reading from the Torah? Why did you think that I was so dull that I couldn't learn? Why did you think that I couldn't meet the challenge? Why didn't you give me the benefit of the doubt?" In fact, this event, this phenomenon, was predicted by the prophet Malachi. The final prophecy that closes and ends all of the prophets says that before Mashiach comes, God says, "I will send to you Eliyahu, my prophet, and he will bring the hearts of parents back to God through the children." Which means, as Rashi says, that the children will come to their parents and with respect say to them, "Let us go back to keeping mitzvahs. Let's go back to living by the Torah." And this explanation, Rashi says, he heard from Rabbi Menachem. There was a convention here not long ago of teenagers who chose their own theme, and their theme was, who rejected tradition and when? Because, as we heard earlier this evening, the Zaydis did not reject anything, and the grandchildren were not taught. So no one rejected. We want to go back. And we see this phenomenon of children returning to Yiddishkeit and bringing their children back to Yiddishkeit very clearly in our own community, in the Beis Chana school, where 2,200 and some women have experienced a renewal and a reawakening of their Jewish involvements. I want to introduce to you one student from Beis Chana, Dr. Miriam Grossman, who has been here a number of times, is presently writing about her experience and has a message for us this evening. Miriam?
They didn't teach you about these things in morning school. I have two stories to tell you tonight. The first one took place in Israel by the Red Sea. I'm sure a lot of you have been there. And I was there a few years ago with two friends of mine. One girl was very into snorkeling, and she went in the water one day, and she came back out after 3 hours, and she told the two of us, me and my other friend, that she had just seen the most unbelievable sight she's ever seen, and maybe we'd like to take a look. And I said, "Thank you. I'm reading a book that's very interesting, and I didn't come here for that. Go have a good time yourself." The next day she went out again, and she stayed out 5, 6, the whole day. The entire day she was underwater. And she'd come back, and she'd say, you're being really silly. You're missing an unbelievable experience, and all you're doing is sitting here and reading your book on the beach and getting a tan or whatever it is. Why don't you just take a chance and come see with me what this is all about? So I said, "Look, I know what those things are. I've seen Jacques Cousteau on television. I've seen Sea Hunt. I'm not interested in fish. Fish is not my thing. I have a lot of interests. Fish is not one of them." All right, so she left me alone. The next day she came back and she was really very persistent, and she called me a hypocrite. She said, look, you think that you're so interested in this and that, and you go all around and go to this place and that place, and there's this unbelievable thing going on 10 feet away, and you won't lift yourself up out of your comfortable little position there with your silly little book that you think is so great that you can read it at home anyway. And just because I'm asking you, I'm a friend of yours, just take a chance and come in. So finally I did it. And I got one of those heavy masks that you put on your face. And I put that tube in my mouth that has a little ping pong ball at the end of it. And I put those flippers on my feet. The whole thing is absurd. And you look foolish and you feel foolish. And I followed her into the water. When I put my head down beneath the surface, I was absolutely flabbergasted. I couldn't believe the sight there. It was like entering into a new world. And as I was looking at these colors and all these fish, I thought to myself, if this is a fish, I don't know what a fish is. I mean, these things, they look like creatures from someone's imagination. This is a fish. I didn't know what a fish was before. And I thought to myself, now I know why I have eyes and why I was given a sense of vision. It was all so that I could live up to this point and put my head under the water here and see this unbelievable sight. This is what my eyes are for. But the other incredible thing about it is if you put your head up above the water again, 2 inches or 3 inches, and you look around, all you see is this flat, level surface of water. It's nothing. No one would ever think that there's anything going on below there, except maybe some more water, some sand, and some stones. And you look over to the beach, and there are these people there, and they're reading books. They're just sitting around, and they're getting a suntan, they're reading books, and there's this world, and they don't have any idea that it's right at their doorstep. For a lot of us, being Jewish is something that we think we know a lot about, and we're very comfortable with. And we get irritated when good friends come and maybe pester us about doing more mitzvahs or being more Jewish. I know that I was very much that way about a year ago, and it took a friend to practically push me in the water. I opened my black bag one afternoon and there was a sitter in there next to my stethoscope. And then I went home and there was a mezuzah up on my door. And I thought it was chutzpah, and I really didn't appreciate it at all. I thought that I knew a lot about Judaism because I grew up in a home where there was a feeling of being Jewish, and I was sent to Hebrew school, and I went to Israel, and I thought I knew a fair amount about the religion. For example, I thought I knew about the Seder. I knew that we put a cup of wine out for Eliyahu. The problem was that we had a neighbor whose name was Eliyahu. And I thought that we're putting out some wine so that our neighbor would come and have a Seder with us. And after a few years, he didn't show up. He kept on not showing up. I finally asked, well, did someone invite him? I mean, he's sitting across the street. He's at his own Seder. Why should he come here? So they laughed. And it was explained to me that he's an angel. It's not really a person. And it's really just a symbol in this wine and all that. It's a symbol. That's religion, is ritual. That's what it's about. And this other thing about going to Jerusalem that we say at the end, we say, Ashna Haba B'Yerushalayim. I have cousins in Israel, and I thought that we were going to take a trip. Next year, well, this year we have a Seder in Pittsburgh, and next year we'll have a Seder in Yerushalayim with my cousins. So this is my idea of what Judaism was. I came to Beis Chana. I learned some very interesting things there. First of all, I learned that Eliyahu was a man. He was a prophet. And when he comes, his job is to reveal the presence of another man, who is Mashiach. And Mashiach is going to take us all to Yerushalayim, not for a visit, but for good. The other thing that I learned is that we don't sit around and wait for these things to happen, because I learned, the rabbis told me, that there's a Mashiach in every generation, which means there's always a man around. He's here. There's a man who can do this job. There always has been a man who could do the job. He just sort of has to come out of the closet. And when is he going to come out of the closet? When the people that he is going to do the job for expect him, when they invite him, when they make room at their table for him, when they put out the glass and really expect it to be consumed by someone, and it's not a symbol. The other story that I wanted to tell is a story of a man, a farmer, who takes his son on a trip with him far away into a city where they've never been before. And he tells the little boy the night before that they're going to see a lot of strange sights and people that he's never met. And they leave the next morning, and the mother gives her son a little bag of candy so that if he gets tired and hungry along the way, he can have this candy. And they go and they see all these sights and the buildings and the people, and they do whatever business they had. And they start on their way back, and the father takes a road back, and it's the wrong road. And they realize they're lost. And the little kid says to his father, no, I know which road it is. I know which road it is. Come, it's this way. And he ignores him. And instead he goes and he asks some other guys, he asks a policeman, he says, I'm going to such and such a village, could you tell me what direction it's in? And they give him some directions and he follows it, and it's no good. He's lost. Goes to another place, they open up a big map, they're studying the map and they're looking for the name of this town. The name of the town isn't even on the map. And the little kid is bothering his father and saying, listen to me, listen, why are you asking people who have never even been to our house? Why are you asking them for direction? I know the way back. And he got very embarrassed because he was in front of other people, and he told the kid, get lost, we're doing this important stuff here, just go back to our horse. And the kid shut up for a while. Finally, the father was so desperate, he was lost, he had tried almost every way back. And he's sitting there, and the kid says, look, will you listen to me now? The father says, how could you know? You're 5 years old. You don't know what a map is. You can't read. You don't know what a sign is. You don't know what a street light is. I'm supposed to listen to you about going home? And the kid says, yesterday when you told me that we were going away, far away, to a place where I've never been, I got scared that we might get lost. And so when we left this morning, I dropped little candies on the way. And if you look over there, there's one of those candies. And a little further on, there's another candy. And lo and behold, it was true. And they found their way home by tracing these candies that the kid had dropped. There's a time when we have to listen to the voice in us that sounds like a child's voice. And it's a voice that's naive. And it doesn't know about politics and about history, doesn't know about the ERA, but it knows about going home because it came from there. And when it hears us going around and asking people who don't know the answers how to get home, it's crying out and it's saying, what is going on here? Why doesn't this person just come and ask me? I know the way with my eyes closed. Going home is getting into holy territory. There are no maps. You can't get a map at a gas station that's going to tell you how to get back to holy territory. You have to listen to this voice in you. And I think that we'll all agree that music is certainly one of the languages that speaks to this voice in us, and that tonight the children in us and the children of us are being directed home by listening to this music. So I have one thing that I wanted to ask of all of you before I finish. When you're at your Seder and you're talking about Eliyahu and about Mashiach to your kids, think about it and realize that it is going to happen, all this. It has to happen. We left Egypt, and we have to leave this darkness as well. And the difference is that when we finally have our Seder, after Mashiach has come, we are going to have a Seder when Mashiach comes, aren't we? I'm pretty new at this. But I think we're going to have Seders after Mashiach comes. Anyway, we're going to have a Seder in which there are more than 4 questions answered. All our questions are going to be answered when Mashiach comes. And we're going to know why it was that we sat so long on the edge of this other world, reading our books instead of going in and taking the plunge and seeing it. And we're going to know why we were running around to people who didn't know any of the answers when we could have gotten the answers inside ourselves. And I think it'll be like it was for me by the Red Sea. We'll put our heads in, we'll open our eyes, and we'll know why we were created. Thanks.
Partner with Rabbi Friedman. Visit itsgoodtoknow.org/support.